Hey, I am so glad you're here. Grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's just take a breath together. Seriously, because if you're anything like me, you are probably feeling that intense, sometimes completely overwhelming pressure of modern parenting. You know exactly what I mean, right? That nagging feeling that if you don't verbally cheerlead every single positive thing they do, you're somehow failing them. We constantly worry, are we doing enough, saying enough, building our kids up enough? Well, today, I want to share a truly liberating explainer with you, pulling from some amazing insights by Kindness is Cool Official. We're going to look at a beautiful, highly practical shift in how we approach this. Specifically, how we can build our kids' true, deep down confidence, not through endless clapping, but through simple, everyday acts of kindness.
I want you to just let this sink in for a second. It becomes something children can prove to themselves. This right here, this is our core paradigm shift for today. As parents, we really don't have to exhaust ourselves constantly trailing behind our kids, telling them how fantastic they are. All we actually need to do is give them the space and the framework to prove their own capability to themselves. Think about how much pressure that takes off our shoulders. It puts the power right into their little hands.
So, to relieve that stress, we've got a super practical playbook for today. We're going to quickly walk through the confidence myth, 5 pathways to confidence, action over empty praise, kindness at every age, the 4-step kindness routine, and finally, avoiding common pitfalls. Okay, section 1, the confidence myth, rethinking encouragement. We absolutely have to challenge this exhausting modern parenting trope. The one that says a child's confidence comes from our constant loud cheerleading. We've kind of been sold this idea that if we just tell them they're amazing 100 times a day, they'll magically believe it. But to understand why that doesn't really work, we have to look at the difference between self-esteem and self-efficacy. Self-esteem is a child's overall sense of worth, which, yes, is very important. But true, resilient confidence, that's much closer to what psychologists call self-efficacy. It is that quiet, internal knowing that says, I can handle this situation. It's their psychological belief in their own ability to take action and actually influence an outcome. And kindness creates this, not through magic, but through actual hands-on practice. Let's move into section 2, 5 pathways to confidence, how kindness builds skill. So how exactly does kindness create the practical evidence our kids need to build that self-efficacy? Well, there are 5 specific pathways where a simple kind act transforms from just being polite into a fundamental building block of their capability. First, it builds competence, because helping requires real skills, like carrying a heavy plate without dropping it, or finding the right words to comfort a friend. Second, it creates a sense of contribution. They learn they aren't just passive receivers of care, they actively add value to the family. Third, it supports relationship belonging by helping them build and maintain healthy connections. Fourth, it develops agency, meaning they get to make real, meaningful choices about how they want to help. And finally, number 5, it rehearses social courage. Admitting a mistake or going over to sit with a lonely kid in the cafeteria, that is socially risky. Doing it anyway builds incredible bravery. Section 3, action over empty praise, providing real evidence. I totally get how easy it is to fall into the "you're amazing" trap. We love our kids so fiercely, and we just want them to feel wonderful about themselves. But broad, sweeping praise actually gives them very little concrete information to work with. And honestly, it can accidentally create a ton of pressure for them to always live up to that perfect label. Just look at this comparison. You're such a kind boy. It's an empty label. If he has a grumpy, selfish day tomorrow, does he lose that title? Now look at the alternative. You saw Lucas needed help carrying the books and asked before stepping in. That is based on evidence. It is such a massive relief for us as parents to focus on actions rather than slapping on identity labels. It leaves plenty of room for our kids to grow, have completely off days, make a mess of things, and still know exactly how to be capable. Moving to section 4, kindness at every age, scaling the practice. Now, I promise you, this isn't just some abstract theory that only works for one specific age group. It scales perfectly, whether you have a tiny toddler wobbling around the living room or a grumpy teenager navigating high school. I absolutely love this visual cheat sheet because it perfectly shows how a child's capacity for kindness naturally evolves alongside their developmental milestones. So, for the babies and toddlers 0 to 2, it's really about secure connection and simple imitation, like carrying a safe item or waving hello. Preschoolers, around 3 to 5, they thrive on concrete choices and contribution, so let them set out napkins or make a card. As they hit school age, 6 to 9, confidence grows through skills, inclusion, and repair. That looks like welcoming a new classmate or actively fixing a mistake. For tweens, 10 to 12, it's about courage under group pressure. Kindness might look like refusing to join in on gossip. And by the teen years, 13 to 15, it's all about values, leadership, and sustained effort. That's when they might choose to mentor someone or volunteer on their own. Imagine your toddler proudly carrying a single washcloth all the way to the bathtub. They might drop it twice. It might be completely unfolded, and honestly, probably soaking wet by the time they hand it to you. It is so ridiculously tempting for us to just grab it and do it ourselves to save 3 minutes of cleanup, right? But letting them do this imperfect work without us swooping in to immediately redo it is absolutely vital for their self-belief. When we say, you carried the washcloth all the way here, you helped us get ready, we are literally handing them tangible evidence that they are a contributing, capable member of the family. Now contrast that sweet toddler story with a tween who is practicing social courage. When they are 11 or 12, standing up publicly isn't always safe or effective. So in their world, kindness might just be quietly refusing to forward a cruel text message or checking in on a friend privately after school. Asking them what action fits your values and keeps everyone as safe as possible shows them that confidence isn't always loud heroism. Sometimes it is just sound, quiet, independent judgment.
Okay, Section 5, the 4-step kindness routine. Practical implementation.
All right, my friend, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the practical implementation phase. I promised you a simple, repeatable weekly habit, and here it is. This is something that takes just a few minutes, usually built around something your child is already doing anyway. Here are the 4 steps to make this work. Step 1, notice a real need. Ask them, hey, what would be useful here? To teach them observation. Step 2, choose a manageable action. Just give them a couple of easy options. Step 3, let the child own the task. You provide the safety net, but please resist the urge to take over at their very first wobble. Let them struggle just a tiny bit. And finally, step 4, reflect on the evidence.
So the crucial point here is how we handle that 4th step, the reflection. If we just ask, oh, did they say thank you? We're accidentally teaching them to look for external validation, which is completely outside of their control. But if we ask, what was difficult about doing that? Or what changed because you stepped in and helped? We are focusing entirely on their internal skill and effort. Proper reflection is the secret sauce. It turns a random nice event into permanent, hardwired evidence of capability right inside your child's brain. Finally, Section 6, avoiding common pitfalls. Setting boundaries.
As parents, our protective instincts are incredibly strong, and obviously we want to get this right. So let's look at the essential boundaries required to keep this process healthy and avoid some of the most common pitfalls. Look, we have all been there, but forcing kindness, like making a kid give a forced hug to a relative or a fake apology on the playground, that actually just teaches compliance rather than true care. And as we mentioned earlier, taking over a task so it looks perfect or has that adult-level polish, it completely robs them of building their own competence. Also, be careful not to make your constant approval the reward, or they'll only ever be kind when they know someone is watching. And really importantly, while kindness is an amazing tool, expecting it to fix deep clinical issues like persistent anxiety or severe depression just isn't fair to them. Always, always reach out to a professional for those things.
I hear this fear from parents all the time. You might be thinking it right now. What if teaching them to be so kind just turns them into a doormat or a people pleaser? It is such a valid worry, but here's the beautiful truth. True confidence-building kindness must always be paired with consent, boundaries, and self-respect. A child can completely learn to help others without ever surrendering their own time, their safety, or their belongings. True kindness includes the absolute right to say no. I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. It's actually a question meant for guiding teenagers, but honestly, I think it is equally powerful for us as adults. What do you care enough about to contribute to consistently, even when nobody applauds? Building our kids' confidence doesn't have to be a loud, exhausting performance for us anymore. We can step back, take a deep breath, and just let their own beautiful, kind actions speak for themselves. Thank you so much for hanging out and exploring this explainer with me today. You've totally got this.